Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening, everyone. First tonight, the family of a man who engaged in a frightening standoff with police has issued a plea for better mental health services. John Seether was struggling with bipolar disorder and had run out of medication during lockdown when he attempted to rob a pharmacy last year.
On a street in Rosetta, a man stumbles towards police. Terrified officers point their weapons, quickly surrounding 20-year-old John Seether. Running out of options, they try using a car to knock him over. He stabs at the window before he's subdued in a second attempt. The video is dramatic, but the story behind it is tragic. Today, a court heard Seether had a long history of mental health problems. He struggled with bipolar and bullying earlier in life. The day before he tried robbing the pharmacy, he had run out of medication while in lockdown. Seether would later plead guilty to a raft of assault and robbery charges. Today, he was sentenced to 2 years behind bars, backdated to the day of his arrest in April 2020. Outside court, his mother revealed she had taken him to a hospital psychiatric unit less than a fortnight before the incident.
They let him out the next day. No review of medication, nothing. So, yeah, it's been devastating.
Mental health in Tasmania, I think, needs a big revamp. Someone needs to do something.
Police were also investigated over its handling of the incident. No breach of the code of conduct was identified, although one officer did receive professional development training. John Seether is now eligible for parole. Sean McComish, 7 Tasmania News.
And if you or someone you know needs support, contact Lifeline on 13 11 14. A man in his 30s has died after crashing his bike near Trial Harbour while competing in an off-road event. Friends raised the alarm when the man was found semi-conscious near his trail bike yesterday. Police believe he may have struck a buried log while taking part in the St Helens to Strawn event. Despite the efforts of paramedics and friends, the man died at the scene. Tasmania will be the final destination in the travel bubble, with the first flights between Hobart and Auckland scheduled in just 3 days. For more details, we turn to our reporter Ruby Kamain at Hobart Airport. Good evening, Ruby. Now, what do we know so far in the lead up to the flights?
Kim, we've been given an update on final preparations at the Hobart Airport. Behind me here will be the new international departure area, almost finished with those first few flights set for Thursday. Now, this will be the first time an overseas passenger has arrived here directly since 1998, with Tasmania finally becoming an international destination once again. When people step off that plane, they'll be the first to experience Hobart Airport's new $20 million arrival processing area, of course having to go through the added measures of customs, passport checks and COVID screening. Work is underway right now to fine-tune that process so it's easy for travellers.
We have heard from Air New Zealand that their bookings are looking very healthy. Our team here has been working really hard, getting everything ready for that first flight, and it'll come down to the wire, but we'll be ready for the Kiwis when they arrive.
The very first Air New Zealand flight touches down at 11 a.m. before turning straight back around to head to Auckland at 12:30, scheduled for every Thursday and Sunday. So, Kim, it's sure to be very exciting for those first Tasmanians ready to jet off to New Zealand, with many leaving the country for the first time since the pandemic.
Very true. Thank you very much. Ruby Kamain there from Hobart Airport, where some of it's being kept under wraps. Well, the states have agreed to take over the federal vaccine rollout in the aged care and disability sectors, following reports of poor communication and a slow pace. For more on what this means for Tasmania, we cross to our reporter Josh Duggan. Josh, when can we see these sectors expect to receive the vaccines?
Kim, aged care and disability workers should expect by July to be vaccinated at either a state clinic or a GP. Another hub delivering the Pfizer vaccine will be set up at the Mersey Community Hospital next week as the state looks to expand its capacity. 55,000 doses have been delivered so far in Tasmania, just over 11% of adults in the state. The Premier says this isn't an admission the Commonwealth rollout is falling behind, rather that the state government had more capacity and is happy to help.
In principle, we've agreed to take on that whole load, which is approximately 12,000 additional people in our rollout. Remembering our rollout is eventually over 400,000, so It is an extra load in the short term.
Also announcing voters at the state election won't have to use the Check-in Tas app when they vote on May 1st, despite its use becoming mandatory from that day. And with that polling day drawing ever closer, let's take a look at what happened out on the campaign trail today. Having produced the 100th bus in their Wynyard factory, there was cause for celebration at Elphinstone. 280 jobs here were affected in 2015 when Caterpillar moved its operations to Thailand.
We have to be absolutely flexible and open to new opportunities. And to be honest, building a bus is not that different to building an underground mining vehicle once you know how to do that.
The Liberals hoping to see more companies take use of the production skills present here.
Today we can announce that we'll be investing a further $10 million into our advanced manufacturing plan so we can continue to build on the successes of today, essentially.
Including up to $600,000 to cover the tender process for defence contracts.
It acts as a barrier at the moment for businesses to do that. The reality is once you've done it once, you understand the process and you can then replicate that for ongoing.
Their manufacturing policy blitz continued in the south, lending money to PFG Group to build a prototype defence vessel ship and attract new buyers.
You can be a very gifted salesperson and outline what your product will do. But if you can touch it, if you can feel it, if you can drive it in the water, then that speaks volumes.
We'll be making announcements about our advanced manufacturing policy in the coming week.
Labor today promised $31.8 million to fund lunches at primary schools.
We have a great opportunity to engage with them in our school settings to make sure that they get the chance to have a healthy, nutritious meal so that they are well and healthy, but also they can concentrate better in the classroom.
We know from the government's own school trial that we saw improved attendance and concentration in classrooms.
The Greens were out talking animal welfare.
We want to end cruel and outdated practices and industries in Tasmania.
Along with banning greyhound racing and duck shooting, they want to better fund animal advocacy organisations.
We are going to establish an independent animal welfare commission and hand over the inspectorate duties from Biosecurity Tasmania to the RSPCA.
They're calling for a review of our laws, saying that they're far from perfect. Josh Duggan, 7 Tasmania News.
Community groups are calling for off-road tracks in the Targa to stay closed, alleging people are illegally accessing the site by vehicle. It follows reports of environmental damage, but the Premier says he'd like to see a balance struck where tracks could safely reopen.
Along the Tarkine's picturesque coastline, these deep tyre marks remain in the sand, leading to a push for protection from environmental and Aboriginal groups.
We're calling for the Tarkine coast south of Sandy Cape to be protected, and for these tracks which were closed by a previous Labor government to be kept closed.
Demanding that our ancient irreplaceable heritage is protected.
Those tracks between Sandy Cape and the Pieman River closed off back in 2012. The Liberals then controversially developed plans to reopen them after coming into power, still yet to take effect. Community groups now alleging people are illegally accessing the heritage-listed area by driving off-road vehicles, reportedly causing environmental damage.
This is one of the richest feeding grounds for shorebirds, and these vehicles ripping up the coast cannot see those nesting birds. They rip through the nests.
Angering many Aboriginal Tasmanians due to the cultural significance of the site.
This coastline dates back many thousands of years. It's full of Aboriginal midden sites, Aboriginal cultural heritage that tells the story of how our old people lived.
Premier Peter Gutwin saying the state government is still considering an Aboriginal heritage study recently conducted, and he's working with the federal government on the next move going forward.
We have a policy position on that whereby we would like to see a balance struck whereby some of the tracks could be opened, but we're going through a planning process in concert with the federal government and we'll continue to do that.
Ruby Kamane, 7 Tasmania News.
A retired tank commander has had the most unlikely reunion, stumbling across his former army tank while on holiday in Tasmania, 15 years after he last saw it. The military man is now on a mission to revamp his machine in time for Anzac Day.
With its imposing figure, Beaconsfield's army tank has caught many an eye, but none more significant than its former commanders.
We all wanted to go and give it a kiss.
David Key was in charge of the machine for the last 8 years of its life in Puckapunyal and the Northern Territory before saying goodbye when it was decommissioned in 2005. Years later, the tank was moved to Beaconsfield before David and his former crew stumbled across it during a trip to the state.
The whole crew, we sort of went, oh, that's ours, that was ours.
Like true military men, they sprung into action, organising for the tank to be cleaned so they can paint and restore the Leopard later this week.
Now they want to come down, give her a little bit of TLC and show their pride in the tank.
The new and improved machine will be unveiled on Anzac Day.
It never broke down because of the care we put into it.
A bond between man and machine as strong as any military tie. Tom Johnson, 7 Tasmania News.
Let's take a look now at the Cripps TSL Player of the Year votes after round 3. 4 goals to Callan Daly for the Pies was convincing in the judges' eyes. Baxter Norton played a blinder for Clarence in the side's 11-point defeat of the Northern Bombers. And another best on ground for Launceston's Jake Hines. Hines leads the pack on 6 votes, Norton is on 5, with a bunch of players tied on 3. So in Alabama, Alex Peroni's Indy Lights career got underway. After starting 8th, the Hobart driver managed to push into 4th place. He later slipped back when his car lost power, eventually finishing 6th. He's back on track in Florida next week. Railton's Jonty Rinder's season is off to a flyer, the Sherco rider claiming a second placing in the E3 class at the Australian Offroad Championships opening round in Victoria. Tate Young is sitting second in the J2 with Ryan Jordan 5th. While Somerset's Kyron Bacon finished second in the E1. It wasn't all smooth for Bacon though, after he lost control on the dirt. Luckily, he was able to walk away unhurt. Tasmanian Ed Maguire is the early pace setter in Targa Tasmania, clocking the fastest time on day 1. A flood of late entries has seen the field balloon to more than 300, well beyond what organisers had expected.
The rumble is back. Targa Tasmania's bumper field left Launceston this morning. Of the 311 entries, 80 came in the last month.
It's the first time we've gone past 300 at a non-anniversary event.
The number surprising organisers who feared a lockdown-weary reception. And luckily for Targa, internationals usually make up only a small part of the package.
We're generally at the wrong time of the year for people on the other side of the world. They're going into their summer seasons.
On the track, the decade's most dominant driver, Jason White, was again jostling for the fastest time, but in a battle of the Dodge Vipers, Tasmanian Ed Maguire ended day 1 in the lead. Jeff Morton's Porsche is also around the mark, he's 3rd overall. For lovers of the classic cars, Queensland's John Siddons is pushing his 1970 Datsun to the limit in the classic GT class, while the classic handicap has Ashley Ells in his 1960 Volvo gunning hard. This year's Targa Tasmania is the longest in the event's 29-year history, covering 618 kilometres of the state.
The local sides, which played before Western United's debut A-League match at UTAS Stadium, say it was a privilege to be a part of the historic day. Olympia Warriors defeated Launceston United in the Women's Super League, while Kingborough stunned reigning Premier Devonport in the NPL. The venue and quality of the surface receiving praise.
The boys loved it. They first thing they come back is, can we do this every week? As it was a treat for all the players.
So yeah, it was nice to have a bit more space. We had a few runs up the wing. I mean, you get pretty tired once you've been running up and back.
Western United has another game in Tasmania against Wellington on Thursday night. Launceston's Nathaniel Atkinson's profile continues to rise in the A-League, earning the March nomination for Young Player of the Year. The 21-year-old appeared 5 times for Melbourne City last month, creating 6 scoring chances in 2 of those games. But his good run of form is on hold after suffering a hamstring tear against the Phoenix. Riley Meredith has bagged the big wicket of Steve Smith in the IPL.
Oh dear, Steve Smith. He really was cutting a tree there.
It finished with figures of 1 for 35. His Punjab Kings lost to the Delhi Capitals by 6 wickets. And Jack Howe's Olympic hopes hang by a thread after a disappointing showing in the track and field nationals. He finished 5th in the 100 metres. Meanwhile, Abby Butler secured gold in the under-18s 2,000 metre steeplechase, while Ella Atkins claimed silver in the under-17s, and that was in the steeplechase as well. And among the other Tassie winners, Caleb Kirkpatrick took gold in the hammer throw, Zoe Lawrenson with silver in the pole vault, and 2 golds for Ariel Cannell in the hammer throw. So some fantastic results for the Tasmanians, and wonderful to see, especially in an Olympic year.
Good evening. 21 at Campania and Dunalley our high today. Hobart 19, Launceston 18, Burnie and Devonport 17 degrees. Fingal had a crisp start, coming off a 0 to warm up to 20 to win our play of the day. Friendly Beaches, Grove and Bushy Park 19, St Helens and the Islands 18, Wynyard, Lowhead and Strawn 17. Cloud affected most of Tasmania. However, the only shower activity was registered over western regions. Our cover joins a broader area over south-east and South Australia and Victoria. Frontal cloud shoots across the bight. Tomorrow that cold front crosses the state as high pressure dominates most of the North Island. Troughs there about Queensland and the far west. The northwesterlies will shift south-southwesterly at 15 to 25 knots in the morning and build to 30 knots over the northeast late afternoon. We have a strong wind warning that's been posted for all Tasmanian coastal waters. A bushwalkers alert for the western and central plateau, and that's for snow down to 800 metres. Hobart tomorrow 15 degrees and showery. Showers easing from Adventure Bay 13 and 8 the high for Tarraleah. Launceston expecting a top of 15. Late frost after a showery day, 15 for Devonport. Bridport showery, winds easing 16. Burnie 14, showers for Strawn 13, 14 for Marrawar. And for St Helens, a high of 17. Showers and wind, 16 for Swansea. Winds easing from Whitemark and 18 degrees. On Wednesday, a frosty start. Launceston -1 and Lyre-Weenie shooting for a -5. Partly cloudy though, apart from showers through Bass Strait and the west, much later statewide. Those showers mostly contracting to the west, far south and Bass Strait on Thursday morning. And on Friday, mainly fine, a shower possible over the south and west and probable over the islands. Sunny in Perth tomorrow, showers clearing from Adelaide, a cold change in Melbourne with wind and rain. Sunny weather in Sydney and Brisbane, and the dry season gets started a tad early in Darwin. Cloudy in Hobart, it's currently 17 degrees. Bit cloudy in Launceston too, 14 currently and 16 right now in Devonport. And just as the supercars leave us, Kim, where they've been replaced by the Targa cars, over 300 of them, as Tom mentioned, going around the state. Tomorrow, Launceston through to St Helens, and by Saturday they'll make their way through to Hobart. Let's hope there's fantastic weather and some fantastic racing and also some nice touring stages for people to watch.